As an artist, the music I make serves a dual purpose. For one, it is my outreach to others, but secondly, it's my outreach to myself as well. A large part of my healing process and moving through trauma or tragedy or anything really is putting pen to paper and voice to song. I grew up in a very supportive household, but I think one that didn't quite understand mental health and preserving one's mental health and strategies to really facilitate that. Music was my connection beyond my immediate circle. My parents worked a lot when I was younger. We lived in Washington, D.C. They were both White House reporters and then journalists and editors and just very, very busy. And I spent a lot of time in cars with friends, parents and babysitters, and just kind of in the back seat along for the ride. But whatever music was playing, I felt such a strong connection to. There was no feeling like listening to music at full volume in a minivan in Bethesda or whatever. The reason I became a musician is to try and give people that same feeling, that same euphoria that I felt as my me time. Therapy was not part of my upbringing when I was younger. I've recently made it a part of my current life over the past year, not even necessarily in terms of dealing with trauma or immediate concerns, but just as an overall life upkeep. It has been unbelievably effective for me in maintaining and safeguarding my mental health, but also for the creation of my art. For me personally, one of the things I've struggled with is allowing myself to feel things even when they're uncomfortable. Starting therapy really just allowed me to sit in those feelings, return to them, and not gloss over them as was my practice in the past. I would say one of the other main things that is also a part of therapy is writing, is journaling. This is my most recent journal. I find I can be more honest with myself when I write things down. Even to my therapist, sometimes I'm often qualifying and often changing what I'm saying based on who is hearing it. When I go back through a notebook like this, I end up learning a lot about myself that I didn't realize in the moment when I was making something. Like, here's a song I wrote, I don't know when, probably like 6 months ago. Go get 'em, you got 'em. I'm busy at rock bottom, got issues, got problems, and you don't. Who was I talking to? Who was I talking about? Do I still feel that way? And I'm happy to say that I don't. But in some of these, I certainly do. It just depends on what I wrote and how I was feeling and how things have changed or they haven't. I am not necessarily always the shining example of how to effectively navigate a situation like this. I struggled with that. I have always been the type of person that is very good at keeping connected with people that I see. So in the beginning of quarantine, it was hard. And I think I really lacked strategies to maintain that social connection. I struggled for a little while. I didn't reach out to people. I had some social anxiety. I felt like I was in this bubble. I kind of lived with this fear that if I hadn't reached out to someone in a while, I couldn't reach out to them. And therefore, like, we were disconnected and some sort of irreparable, tie had been severed or whatever. And it just took some positive reinforcement from my therapist to remind me the value that I can provide to other people in those relationships. It's not just a take, it's also a give. And now I literally have a goal every week of how many people I want to reach out to that I haven't spoken to in a while. So it's been certainly a battle throughout this crazy time, but you never know when somebody needs you and they're just not able to tell you. I strive for my music to be as seamlessly an extension of me as possible. And so as I try and navigate interpersonal relationships, so too does my music. One of the most beautiful things are those messages when people reach out and share their connection to the music and what it's done for them. And I'm able to really have a conversation with them, or by the same logic, the conversations that never happen, but happen. You know what I mean? The conversations that happen through somebody experiencing the music and they get what they need from the art, and I'm able to give what they needed through the art, but we don't actually ever have a conversation. The conversation is had solely through the headphones. I heard this song for the first time when I was We did a big move from Washington, D.C. to Seattle when I was 12. It was challenging. It was hard. I moved in the middle of middle school. So, like, everybody had their friend groups in Seattle. I felt like I was leaving a whole community of people behind. On one of the first days I got to Seattle, it was raining, and I heard that song and I just started crying. And it wasn't like an I'm miserable cry. It was more like an I'm exactly where I need to be right now cry. I don't know. I just all of a sudden felt all the opportunities that had been afforded to me in one moment in time, and it knocked me over. And so I've held on to that song as one of the closest in my heart since then, and I'm sure it will be until I leave this earth.
Now here you go again. You say you want your freedom. Well, who am I to keep you down? It's only right that you should play the way you're feeling. Listen carefully to the sound of a loneliness, like a heartbeat drives you mad. In the stillness of remembering what you had and what you love, what you had and what you love. Thunder only happens when it's raining, and players only love you when they're playing. I say women, they will come and they will go. When the rain washes you clean, you know. You know. Now here I go again. You see the crystal vision. I keep my visions to myself. It's only me who wants to wrap around your dreams. And have you any dreams you like to sell? Dreams of loneliness, like heartbeat drives you mad. In the stillness of remembering what you had and what you love, and what you had and what you love. Thunder only happens when it's raining, and players only love you when they're playing. I say women, they will come and they will go. When the rain washes you clean, you know. Thunder only happens when it's raining, and players